So you want to play Blades on One More Multiverse. You're in the right place. This is a quick start player's guide. We go over some of the fundamental rules and how OMM helps you with them. If you're a GM, either new or returning to Blades, we've got a separate video for you. Blades is a game where you and your crew are going to play as daring scoundrels trying to survive and thrive in the cruel, haunted city of Duskfall. You're going to do crime, fight ghosts, and take over the city. You'll pull off scores, recoup in downtime, and find your next mission in free play. These are the three main phases in Blades in the Dark. But more on that later. Let's first get you in. Your GM is going to set up a verse and send you a link to join the game. All you need to do is click the invite link to hop in. We've got content warnings and safety tools right here. You'll pop into the game as an anonymous wisp, a little blue guy just walking around exploring, and then make characters with your crew together, or maybe separate. This is all guided and you can see what your other crew members are choosing too. After you made your characters, introduce them to each other. You'll make a crew together. This step, everyone will make choices together. Now you're ready to start playing. Let's do a quick tour of all the tools you've got, and that will explain in more detail in the bookmark sections. On your left are things that change the level, like Creation Pod and Cinematic Controls. Changed up the world to fit the story that's happening in your game. On the right are some tools to play the game, like dice and clocks. We'll touch on those as we go through Blades mechanics. On the bottom are player tools like the rulebook, your character sheet, aka the playbook, and the NPC library. And of course, there's you and your scene. Maybe a pixel art level, maybe a map of Duskfall, maybe an illustrated background. At the top are the game guides, a guide to each of the Blades 3 phases. The rest of this video is gonna have these 5 parts timestamped below for easy browsing. So what exactly do you do in Blades? You'll be playing as a daring scoundrel, trying to survive and thrive in the haunted city of Duskfall, as we said earlier. Everything is trying to keep you down. If the blue coats don't get you, the ghosts will. How will you escape your fate, or maybe break the system that's trying to punish you? Blades is a fiction-first game. Always narrate and consider the fiction first, and then choose the mechanic that fits. Try to steer your character in bold and daring ways. Drive your character like a car you stole. This game makes failure survivable and interesting. Do not coddle your character. Get out there, get into danger, nothing is precious. So that brings us to roles. Mechanically, most stuff you do is here. When your actions involve danger or trouble, your GM might ask you for a role. You choose what action matches what you're doing. Don't be a weasel. Pick the action that best represents what you're doing, even if you're bad at it. Your GM will then tell you the position and the effect. Don't worry about this. Your GM's taking care of it when they watch the GM video. There are tons of ways to get extra D6s, even if you're not great at an action. You can push yourself, ask for a devil's bargain, or a teammate can assist you. Push yourself and assistance costs stress, and I'll tell you what that is in a second, but all of that is applied automatically for you by One More Multiverse. You don't need to keep track of it. There's also special teamwork rules for stuff like group roles. Read about them on the bottom left of your character sheet. In particular, we suggest trying group roles, where you take the best result of everyone's roles, but the leader pays the highest stress cost. Once you're sure you picked your action, you roll. Mostly you'll get a mixed success, but learn to love them. The mix of achieving your goal but causing new problems, that's gonna make the best story for your game. So that's roles. What's your HP? How do you get hurt if you fail? What bad things can happen to you? Well, the first of the bad things that can happen is stress. Stress is a little bit like HP, but it's more like a resource you can spend. You take stress to do hard stuff, but once you get past 9, you'll have to mark 1 trauma. 4 traumas and you retire your character forever. Trauma is something you roleplay out, by the way, just like being paranoid or vicious. Aside from the stress and trauma track, you might also receive harm. The GM deals out harm when fictionally appropriate, often as a consequence for a mixed success roll. Harm goes from less bad to, more bad, and you erase it 1 level at a time by filling a healing clock during downtime. So yes, you can die, but don't worry, you can also resist harm. Resistance always works, and you roll to find out how much stress it costs you. OMM applies the stress cost of resistance automatically. You can also put on armor, whether light or heavy, and that's good for 1 or 2 free resist. We've also saved the best for last, your secret weapon in your scoundrel tool belt, the flashback. If you remember nothing else, remember this mechanic. We even put it here so you really can't forget. At the cost of 1 stress, you can flash back to some time in the past. Flashbacks are not time travel. They don't change what's already happened, but they can still be really damn powerful. Blades has a strict minimal prep policy, and flashbacks are how that is possible. Okay, you're a daring scoundrel. You narrate what your character does and bring in mechanics when you need to. Sometimes you have to roll. You'll spend stress, trying not to max out and take trauma. Your GM might give give you harm, but you can also resist it. And you can always get out of a tight situation with a flashback. That's everything you need to know so far. So how are sessions structured? Free play, score, and downtime. Now, free play is the default mode. This is classic freeform roleplay, and we encourage you to play with time. Don't roleplay minute-to-minute stuff and skip the things that are boring. Cut between scenes. Roleplay what's most interesting to you. When you first start, I recommend you focus on a goal. This might set you on a direction for the next half dozen sessions. Get to know each other's characters so you can decide on goals that you want to pursue together as a crew. Maybe it's just getting more powerful. You want to take over this territory from a higher tier crew that currently has it. Maybe you want to get revenge on the guy who killed your dog and stole your carriage. Maybe you want to open Doskval's first ever cat cafe. A goal will naturally give rise to ideas for scores as you get closer. When you're ready, pick your score. A single operation with a particular goal. That could be kidnapping a blue coat, stealing a painting, attending a party, that kind of thing. Pick your approach, answer the question, choose your load, and then do your engagement roll. Notice I never said plan. There is no planning here. Answering this question is as much planning as you should do. Get a cool idea for a plan? Do a flashback later. The engagement roll tells us how it's going when we cut to the action at the first obstacle we face. And honestly, jump to whatever moment of the score that most excites you and your friends. Let's say we're stealthily breaking into the Dimmer sisters' home through the roof. Don't forget, flashbacks are your best friend. Stuck on ideas for what to do? Consider using an item. Remember how we said pick load? Load is how many inventory slots you have. Pick anything from this list at any time during a score. Don't pre-pick items, so wait until the moment you actually need something to tick the box. Armor to resist harm counts against your load too. Once you succeed, fail, or who knows, maybe give up on a score. It's downtime. Take a breather. You're out of danger and the pressure is off. Downtime is meant to be a reprieve for both players and characters. A chance to slow down, reflect on the story a bit. Downtime has a lot of mechanics, but don't worry, just follow the game guide. A lot of downtime deals with crew stuff. In a way, downtime is about zooming back out to think about your little itty-bitty tier 0 crew in the context of Doskval. What impacts did your score have on the city around you? Who'd you piss off? Who do you need to impress now? And what was everyone else doing while you were busy in the score? 1. The crew doles out the last score's payoff, however you want to divvy up the money. 2. Figure out how much heat you've racked up. The more heat on your crew, the worse entanglements get, until you finally gotta send someone to prison to clear it, and you can learn about those mechanics when you get to them. 3. Roll to cause entanglements in the world around you. And 4, lastly, as an individual player, you'll all pick up 2 downtime activities each. Pay 1 coin per extra activity you want to do. To learn more about any of these downtime activity options, you can look them up here in the rulebook. The most important one to know is Indulge Vice. This sets up a Vice roll, where you roll to discharge stress. And of course, does it for you. A quick side note about what you'll actually do during these phases as you roleplay. Do not, and I repeat, do not sit back and make your GM do everything for you. In Blades, all players are co-authors in the world together. You're deciding together where the story goes and help bring the world to life, not just focusing on your own character as it might happen in other systems. If you're doing Theater of Mind scene, you might be able to find images for a backdrop. If you're using a level, you can help set the vibe, music, sounds, and place animations. You can even place assets or change the level to match what people are saying. And importantly, you can help place NPCs and take notes on them. GMs love it when a player takes notes. This is the NPC library, a huge part of your story, and everyone at the table gets access to it. This library is everyone you've come across who you've decided to promote to full character status. As you explore Doskval, you'll see random people you're interested in who become NPCs, or you might make some NPCs from scratch. Here's where you track them, keep notes on them, and place them. We even made a spot on your character sheet to bookmark your special NPCs from the library, so you can remember to work them into the story as you need, and take notes each time they make an appearance. Quick Place is for grabbing what I call set dressing NPCs. These are the extras. Basically no info, maybe just a pretty face. Help your GM by illustrating scenes as they talk. You can also use the roulette to randomly pick new or existing NPCs to pop into a scene. You're pulling off cool crimes, blue coats are taking notice, and maybe you're even racking up trauma. Let's talk about progression. You can find everything you need for your character's progression on the progression tab of your sheet. First, let's talk player XP. After every session, look at this list of questions and give yourself XP if you did them. You can put that XP wherever you like in any of these 4. You'll also have earned some of this XP through desperate rolls automatically, and is tracking that and adding that for you. When the player XP track fills up, you get a special new ability. When any of these attribute XP tracks fill up, you get action points to put somewhere. Secondly, and my apologies for the depressing phrasing, you have to save for retirement. The more coin in your stash, the easier your character's life will be after accruing 4 trauma. Basically, you're saving up to not have a tragic ending. Before we talk about crew progression, we're gonna talk about my favorite part of Blades, the faction game. How do you, as a crew, fit into the hierarchy of competing factions of Duskfall? How do you rise to the top to become the most powerful? This is really the beating heart of a long campaign. We explain it in this video because your GM, frankly, has a lot of other things they gotta know. We think it makes for the best possible Blades game if the players are also invested in this. Everything we've talked about so far really culminates into this: Duskfall's great faction game. This comes back to crew progression, I promise. The faction game is about the relationships between you and other factions or forces of power around Duskfall. Duskfall is this beautiful web of alliances and betrayals, and the faction game refers to the ways your actions, choices as a crew impact a living world, has mechanically structured ways to respond. Here's where the faction game is tracked. It is a super important tab. The game comes with a bunch of starting factions. Delete or supplement as you see fit or as you find more interesting. Of course, we find that making NPC factions is one of the most fun ways to play, and once you get going, you can't watch any show or movie without wanting to turn one of those characters you see into a faction too. Every faction has a tier, which is their measure of power, influence, and scale. You might say the goal of a Blades campaign is to become the highest tier faction in the city. You start at tier 0, absolute nobodies, and the highest tier is 4 for groups like the Spirit Wardens. Every faction also has a strong or weak hold. Is their position secure or threatened? And of course, each faction has an opinion on you. From -3, which is full out war, actively try to murder you full time, fight on sight, to +3. They're your homies, your true allies. Our tip is that no score should leave the faction table unchanged. Maybe you attacked competitors to change their hold to weak. Maybe your actions left you exposed and now your hold is weak. Maybe you went to war. Maybe you just earned a powerful group's trust. So back to the crew progression. How do we climb this ladder? How do we play the faction game? There are 3 interlocking crew progression tracks. The first is the simplest. Crew earns XP just like the characters by doing these things. Check these questions like your own character progression questions at the end of the session, and then give yourselves crew XP. Fill the track and get 1 crew special ability or 2 crew upgrades. These make you more powerful, making everything else easier. The second is rep and turf. Every successful score gives you rep, and when you max out rep, you can pay 8 coin to bump up your hold or tier. So you go weak hold, strong hold, and a tier up. Easy to remember. You can make this process easier by winning turf, which cuts down how much rep you need to get. So how do you get turf? Well, that brings me to the last crew progression track. The third track is claims. Each crew type has a unique, cool-looking claims map. If you want something on the map, you'll have to plan a score specifically around getting it. If you succeed, you get it, and if you piss someone off, you must pick someone to bump down a couple relationship points. Turf is quite a fun mechanic here in OMM because you can make it super literal if you like. So let me go mad scientist for a second. Crew XP gives you extra powers, makes it easier to succeed on cool scores. Earn rep, so those cool scores can increase your tier. Use those cool scores to grab claims. Includes turf, which reduces how much rep you need. It all fits together. You, a crew of daring criminals with a dream, explore Duskfall in free play until you find a score worth doing. You pull off that score by the skin of your teeth and with just-in-time flashbacks and thank God I brought this inventory. Then as you go through downtime, you figure out how your actions in that score caused a ripple effect in your world, including reactions from other factions. We pick the most interesting plot lines, find new problems to solve, and move on to our next score. That's Blades on One More Multiverse. If this was a lot of info at once, don't panic. Just start by doing some rolls, and doing these 3 phases, you'll encounter everything as you go. When in doubt, search up the rules here, and this video is always here if you need it. That's it. Get out there, scoundrels, and take your city.